Amish barns are known for being simple, strong buildings. Most people see them as just places for hay and animals. But underneath it all, every single barn held a deep secret. A hidden room, carefully built, that outsiders were never meant to find. This wasn't some place for extra tools or grain. This secret space was absolutely crucial for their very survival. It was a silent testament to a hidden power that kept their community thriving. So what exactly was this hidden power? It wasn't anything supernatural. It was the people themselves. You see, the Amish are known for being self-sufficient. But the real secret to their success is how they rely on each other. Their whole way of life is built around a simple idea: when a neighbor needs help, you show up. No questions asked. And the best example of this is a tradition they still practice today called a barn raising. Forget a small crew and a bunch of heavy machinery. When a family needs a new barn, the entire community shows up to build it. We're talking about all the men, women, and older kids, all working together for free. They can put up a massive building in just 1 or 2 days. It's an incredible thing to witness. But this tradition isn't just about getting a job done fast. It's the key that unlocks the entire mystery. Because the way they all work together is the exact reason why every single one of those barns needed that secret room. So, how do you even pull something like this off? How do you get 100 people, who aren't professional builders, to raise a giant barn without it turning into total chaos? The answer is, it's not chaos at all. It's a finely tuned system that's been perfected over generations. At the top, you have the crew chiefs. These are older, experienced men who have been a part of dozens of barn raisings. They are the project managers, the foremen. They know every cut, every joint, and every single step of the process by heart. They guide the whole operation, telling everyone exactly what to do and when. And the younger men and boys learn by doing. They grow up watching these events. From a young age, they are there, helping carry small things, observing, and listening. By the time they're old enough to swing a hammer on the main frame, they've already seen it all happen countless times. It's a real-life apprenticeship. But the barn raising was never just a construction project. It was a huge social event. Think of it like a giant, productive festival. As one historical account puts it, these were times of community good feeling, solidarity and festivity. It was a chance for everyone to connect, to strengthen their bonds, and to work together for a common good. It was the heart of their community in action. And this whole massive effort had to be timed perfectly. They couldn't just do it whenever. Barn raisings were almost always scheduled for June or July, that sweet spot in the farming calendar right after the spring planting was done, but before the big fall harvest began. It was the one time everyone could afford to leave their own farms for a day or two. Now, all this work, from sunup to sundown, requires a serious amount of fuel. We're talking about feeding an entire community of hungry, hard-working people. The men are lifting heavy beams all day, the kids are running supplies back and forth. They need food, and a lot of it. This is where the women came in. While the men built the barn, the women ran an equally organized, high-stakes operation of their own, the kitchen. They had to prepare a massive feast, enough to feed everyone 3 big meals a day. And that's where the secret of the barn really begins. Because to feed an army, you need an arsenal of supplies. And once the last wooden peg was hammered into place, they would celebrate. In a tradition called topping out, a small branch or a flag would be placed on the highest point of the new barn. The master carpenter might say a few words, and a cheer would go up from the crowd. It was a symbol that, once again, they had done it together. So where did they keep all of that food? And how did they manage the logistics for a feast big enough to feed a small army? That's where this special room comes in. It wasn't a command center with maps on the wall. It was something far more practical, and far more important. It was the barn's root cellar, but a root cellar on a whole different level. This wasn't some afterthought or a simple hole in the ground. In many cases, this room was the very first part of the barn to be built. Before a single wall of the main structure went up, the community would dig. They excavate a deep, wide space, often lining it with thick stone walls that would last for a century. These created a massive, naturally cooled pantry, safe from the summer heat and the winter frost. Think of it like the community's shared refrigerator and pantry. In the weeks leading up to the barn raising, families would bring their contributions here. Sacks of potatoes and flour, barrels of salted meat, preserved vegetables, wheels of cheese, and gallons of milk. Everything needed to feed 100 hungry workers was stored right there, on site. This space became the headquarters for the women running the kitchen. It was organized, efficient, and centrally located. They could easily access supplies, coordinate the meals, and keep the entire food operation running smoothly without getting in the way of the heavy construction happening just above. And the genius of it was its design. The entrance was often just a simple, sturdy trapdoor in the main floor of the barn. Once the barn was built and filled with hay and equipment, you could walk right over it 1,000 times and never guess that a huge, vital storeroom was sitting right beneath your feet. But this room's job wasn't over when the barn raising ended. For the family who owned the barn, this cellar was their lifeline through the year. It kept their harvest fresh, their food safe, and their family fed. It was a symbol of security and self-sufficiency. So, while the towering frame of the barn was what everyone saw, the real heart of the operation was hidden below. It wasn't just a room for storage. It was the engine that powered the entire community effort, a silent, unseen foundation that made the one-day miracle of a barn raising possible. But that cellar, and the barn raising it supported, were about something much bigger than just one building. They were a powerful defense for a way of life that was intentionally different from the world around it. You have to remember, back in the 18th and 19th centuries, building a barn was a monumental task. It was your warehouse, your workshop, and the key to your family's survival. But it was also massive. It was far too big and expensive for one family to ever build on their own. This was a huge problem for early settlers, not just the Amish. So, communities came up with a brilliant solution, the barn raising. The entire neighborhood would drop what they were doing and come together to build the whole structure for free. Now here's the crucial part. As the rest of America modernized and moved on from this tradition by the late 1800s, the Amish didn't. They held on to it tightly. Why? Because for them, it had become more than just a practical way to get a building up. It was the glue that held their entire society together. Showing up to a barn raising wasn't optional. It was a core responsibility of being in the community. If you were an able-bodied person, you were expected to be there, period. If you skipped out without a very good reason, people noticed. And in a community built on trust and mutual support, that was a big deal. This system created a deep sense of interdependence. It was an unspoken promise. You knew that if your barn ever burned down, your neighbors would be there the next day to help you rebuild. And they knew you would do the exact same for them. It was also a living classroom. The older, more experienced men would lead the project, and the younger generation learned everything they needed to know about construction just by watching and doing. Critical skills were passed down directly, not from a book, but right there on the job site. This ensured that the knowledge to build, and to be self-sufficient, was never lost. This was especially important in rural areas where you couldn't just call a contractor or make a quick trip to the city. They had to rely on themselves, and on each other.